Hello. Thank you, Holly, for a very nice introduction, and thank you for having me here. As said, my talk is going to be about basically people. It has this very loud title, but mostly I'll be speaking about communication with and about design system. Before we jump into the content, let me please introduce myself. So I'm a design system architect, and now I work as an independent consultant helping companies on the topic of design system. My background is mostly technical. I've been working as a front-end engineer for 15 years. But recently, I started to shift more towards design and people management thing. So here you have links to my website and Twitter. Please feel free to follow and ask me any question about the content or anything else design system related. So now let's move on. So design systems are for people. This is a frequent message in the design systems community. There is a lot of talks and articles and blog posts that broadcast this message. One of the talks I display at my slide, we are not going to watch the video now, but once you get link to the slides, please feel free to spin off with another presentation. And actually, my slides will have many other links. But I wanted to highlight that it is often said that focusing on people is a key point for design systems success. And how you communicate to people is often underlined as a very important aspect on building and maintaining design systems. And if to sum up all these messages, it would be something like, to boost a design system, you need to focus on people. But how? This is the question that I'm going to answer, at least partly, today. So before we start, let's think, what does design system team do? I mean, what does design system team really do? Now, another link to another presentation that recently was shown at Schema conference, and I admired it a lot. Louvre design system team shared about what their team is actually doing. And they presented this nice diagram that I borrowed. And this diagram shows that besides building the actual components and fixing bugs on them, maybe providing documentation to them, there is a lot, also another parts of work that design system team does a lot, such as adoption and support. And that's all giving design system teams limited capacity, which is often the case. It was even underlined that you should take specific actions for not to make your work support only. And I can relate it with my experience as well. For the people from outside the team, it looks like that. So there is a product part, meaning, say, the component library that the design system users see, and there is a lot of other work the design system team still needs to do, but no one actually knows that this work even exists. In this talk, I'm going to show you how to communicate about the whole picture of the design system, what kind of product it is, and what processes it is, and how you can get benefit from this open communication. So let's start with the product part. This is a snapshot of the current design system I'm working with. Basically, it offers UI kit, React library, separate web components library, and separate design tokens package. The design system that you are working with or you are starting to work with might be different, but still it's about the same shape. And what is actually used, what is actually communicated about this product part of the design system? Usually it's something like that. So there is information coming in and out. The users, meaning our colleagues, they bring us bug reports, and we appreciate that. They give us feedback and suggestions. And also they address questions to us, and sometimes there are help requests. And the design system team, instead, it communicates about releases, incident warnings, if it's possible to warn, and announces, mostly about what happens in the near future. As for channels used to communicate this thing, it's usually like the following. So there is a design system website, either custom-made, or sometimes some platforms are used for that, like Zero Height or Frontify. It is a standard that design system has something like a dedicated channel in the instant messenger, Slack, Teams, Flowdog, Mattermost, whatever your company is using. The code is usually available for everyone else in the company and hosted on GitHub or on GitHub Enterprise. And the team is usually, and I recommend to, is usually actively using design and development forums in the company. Not necessarily the chats and channels, but sometimes regular meetings. So that's that's the part about the product thing. But how to provide more clear picture of the system? What do I mean here? If you just message that there is a design system available, usually people expect to have all their needs covered. In fact, it's not possible. And for not to make them confused, design system needs to answer the questions. What component is available and what component is not available? What components are soon coming? What is current status of the component? Because without that, people are just confused. And for not to make them confused, we have to treat design system as a product and use all the product techniques that are already existing to, for example, set up right expectations. Because it's a very good weapon, as the quotation highlights. In this regard, I really like the suggestion from Nathan Curtis. In the article to what I provided link, he suggests to have a component status map, meaning a matrix that shows on which flow the components are, what has already been designed, what is only in development yet, and what is released. In the article, you can see the explanation on how exactly and why in details to do that. And you also can see it in action already. For example, Polaris Design System does something like that. They have a separate page where they show this matrix status of the components. We can go even further and extend this idea to display the status of the component on the page. For example, this flow thing can be on the page, and we can show if the component is in research phase, or it's being designed, or it has already developed, or it's experimental, or it's released. And what else? For example, we can have a status mark on what platforms are supported in the component. This is what Orbit Design System does, for example. Or we can say that something is deprecated. There is a perfect example in Vanda Design System. Or we can even say what is coming. If you navigate to Lightning Design System, say to the avatar component, you will see that this is the design version, which is planned to be released in summer. And if you have a product that is ready to be released in summer, you can already use it. Or alternatively, you can switch to current version. I think it's a brilliant example. So that's about the product. Then maybe we can communicate also about the process. Yes, we can. And this is what we do at my current project. I would like to share in a bit more details. So basically, the situation at my current project is that design system is developed by a relatively small team, but for a huge company. More than 60 products are using the design system. And this is the example of design system team limited capacity to deal with such a huge backlog. And we have also this situation that the product part, the top of the iceberg, is seen to other people, but there is also the below the water part, which is not seen by other people, but it still has to be done. So what are we doing with that? Actually, this very diagram is used in work. So we visualized our process like that, and we show to everyone how we decide what comes to the next sprint. And it goes like the following. We take input from people, offering them to vote for the epics that belong to the product part of the design system, meaning for the components, either developing new components or fine-tunings in existing components, redesigns, and such. And we have a bunch of epics that mean the below the water thing. With that input, the design system team gets all the information for future prioritization. And having the work structured like that and assessed, we can easily say what goes to the next sprint, what goes to the sprint after the next sprint. And everything else, perhaps it will never be done. And this is the very schema. So we honestly say this never worked. And what we get out of that? The process is now super open, and it provides clear message about the resources and about what and how something will be done. And if it's not done, it clearly says why. And apparently, it is very good for contributions, because it's not just a contribution request, call for contributions, but it's detailed explanation of why design system team resources are put into particular thing. And that is very reasonable for all the others, and they are much more motivated to contribute in order to push the things that they are for, rather than it would be just a contribution call. And with the voting system, I would like to highlight that we now have a knowledge about who is interested in the component, and we can address to certain people. And that brings me to the next topic, which is how to link to the people. In the next slides, I have a few examples of a tool being used for real stakeholder management. If you want, you can right now follow the link below, which is to a Google Sheet that is proof of concept of such stakeholder management tool. So I explain its history and how it basically appeared. So in one of my previous projects, it was possible to search with GitHub API where the components from design systems are used. And this information, initially, it was stored as JSON, but lately the team found how better use this information. And if translated to CSV in this matrix way that you can see on the slide, it is possible to export to Excel or Google Sheets. And then with these monstrous formulas, you can have a selector that you can see on the green. And by selecting a specific component, you can see how many projects are using this component and also list of these projects. And this is something that was frequently used in that previous project I was involved in order to address to certain projects and certain people. The idea can be extended to linking to the particular people, not only the teams, because if we know the company structure, we can say who are the people that belong to a particular project, and we can even reflect the company structure if it's available. As for the solution, I have experience with Excel, and I translated it to Google Sheets just for demonstration purposes, but it works perfectly the same. And another option would be Google Data Studio. There you can have more complex widgets. This is what I have experience with at the current project. And many people say that they can just write their own solution, some custom React component with which they can obtain the data. But I would personally recommend to go with some Office things like Excel or Google Cloud Data Studio, because this is something that is available for anyone, including business people of your company. In having such a tool, you may address to certain people personally in different situations. Say the library has critical updates in particular components, you know whom to warn. People will appreciate it a lot. You can ask for feedback about upcoming changes before these changes are actually implemented. And the other way around, you can learn who is not using the component and you can ask why. Maybe there is something to change. A design system team can search for contributors using such a tool, because most likely those who are using the components a lot, they are possible contributors. And you can redirect people if someone is interested in the experience of using some component. You redirect them to the teams that are already using the same component. And this way you save design system team limited resources. So very nice idea, I think, and I use it a lot. Now let's move on to how to meet new people. Here, another tip from my last project. Actually, what we do, recently started to do, is onboarding session. This is especially a good thing for large company who hire a lot of engineers every month. For example, there could be monthly or bi-monthly session, say every first Wednesday of the month. And the content should be rather short, maybe 30 minutes. And the intention of the session would be to make newcomers familiar with the fact that design system exists, where to find it, what is its documentation, and so on and so on. And for example, this backlog policy picture, in my project, we are shared right away on the onboarding session so that we have clear message from very beginning. These onboarding sessions, they can be separate for designers and developers, project owners, or they can be all together, depending on how many people you have joining every month. Then, how to go with innovations, considering people in mind. Actually, here there is a suggestion too. So if you want to try something new in design system, usually it's a new technology. Go with proof of concept or MVP, and then get some feedback. For the feedback, it works to explain why this feedback is needed, how you might proceed having the feedback, and how you cannot proceed without having any feedback. Use all the possible public forums like regular meetings and channels, and so on. But from my experience, what works the best is to ask people personally, sometimes several times. Well, often several times. You can also organize try-on session and sit together, either in a call or on site, and try to get instant feedback for them. And summing all this up, we treat here design system as a product. And if we treat it as a product, what else we can do? We can look around. What do other design systems do? And often happens they do the branding. Design system has name, slogan, its colors, often the brand colors of the company, but sometimes slightly different. They push shared ownership, publish contribution guidelines, mention contributors on the documentation page, link to editing the pages, and so on. They even display positions in design system team, which is very product level of design system. And they show flows and trees, decision trees on the documentation website. What else? You can learn if you benchmark the different design systems. And such an approach brings design system message up to the business levels. So treating design system as a product, you can go to the business people, and I put the money picture in the background. It's a bit jerky, but every joke has a slight piece of truth inside. So you can message that design system enhances design and development in the company, that it ensures fewer costs for the production, and it decreases time to market for new ideas, and it makes an opportunity for the people to do real work. This is what many underline when speaking about design system. And this all together, treating design system as a product and providing these business level messages, it makes your design system project to look much more mature. It is more structured, more organized, and it's aiming to the highest level of maturity of the process. Stakeholder management in this regard is one of the design system processes. And if you invest time into that, and if you get structured and stay structured, I'm sure you will manage. So I encourage everyone to do the proper stakeholder management, invest time into that. Basically, that's all for my talk. Anyone can go to the slides and see all the links now. And if you got interested, please connect me on LinkedIn, on Twitter. And I also invite everyone to go to my website and check other design system related content. I'll be very happy for your questions too. Thank you.